welcome back to Salmon's Pizzeria. We've had our week off, the League Cup is gone, and Championship football is very much back in action. I am, of course, joined by a fellow yellow and black shirt wearer, as it seems, in Kieran Ashton. Kieran, how are you?
Aye, not bad. Delighted to be back on. Talking about a Thistle result, a Thistle win, sorry. Aye, delighted to be back on.
Unfortunately, we couldn't do it last week. We're not a League Cup podcast, but in case anyone who is watching is wondering, Kieran's wearing a Partick Thistle kit. I'm wearing a Zabar St Patrick's kit who play in the Maltese Premier League. So if anyone's wondering what on earth is he wearing now, there we go. And wearing a rather old Queen's Park training kit, we of course have Enzo. How are you, Enzo?
I'm alright. It's not that old. This is from maybe, I don't know, maybe about 4 or 5 seasons ago, something like that. Admiral made some fantastic stuff for us, though. I really miss it compared to the gear that we've had since then. Even Macron was disappointing compared to them, and objectively speaking, Macron isn't too bad. But yes, I'm okay. I have quite a lot of opinions on Queen's Park and the Championship in general, so it'll be good to put those out there into the ears of anybody who's daft enough to listen to me talk nonsense.
We always love chatting about nonsense, do we? And of course, the nonsense begins with Friday night's game. I have very much been looking forward to talking about this, let's just put it that way, because of course it was the big one. It was the Fife Derby. It was Raith against Dunfermline. And in the weeks prior to the game, both teams had the week off because neither of us made out the group stages of the League Cup. Dunfermline signed a Peruvian called Jefferson Caceres from Sheffield United using some sort of AI data analysis. And the thing is, he'd signed for Sheffield United back in February for £1 million. So there's no confirmation of what the fee is, but I can only imagine it's a fair bit of money. Although I believe James Board, I think his name is, the guy who owns Dunfermline, he might have some links with Sheffield United. So be very interesting to see how that goes. It'll be very funny if it's a failure, if it's a big fee they paid. But they did also sign Robbie Fraser from Rangers after he had an impressive loan spell at Livingston last season in the Championship. So two very interesting additions for them. Any thoughts on these two signings?
Fraser's an excellent signing on paper anyway. When Livingston were playing well last season, he was absolutely one of the keys to that. So I was somewhat surprised. I mean, I think Livingston would probably have taken him back if there was the opportunity to do that. Maybe Dunfermline were offering him a more substantial wage than what Livingston could. So yeah, I was surprised by that signing, but I think he really should be very, very good again at this level. The other guy, I don't know. I mean, he's just one of these players that really anybody who says he's going to either be good or bad is just making it up because none of us actually have a clue.
Yeah, it screams like early 2000s Scottish Premiership. Just signing a load of foreign players who are they're either absolute world beaters or it's a case of have these people kicked a ball before. Like, there's no in between. I'm hoping for that second one because it would be very, very funny. But yeah, Kieran, we obviously saw a fair bit of Robbie Fraser last season. I'd imagine you're impressed with that signing.
Absolutely spot on. It was somebody that I would have liked to have seen Thistle go in for, especially after losing Harry Milne in January. And fun fact, I think he's a boyhood Thistle fan as well, so there's that link there as well. And I think they should be higher than Dunfermline. To be honest, I think they should be top end Championship, even lower end Premiership, even maybe like a team like a Motherwell or a Dundee or something like that. I think he's a fantastic player. He certainly, whenever he played against Thistle, I thought he stood out for Livy. Or he's certainly one of the standouts for Livy last season. I think he's a fantastic player, and I think it's a really good coup for Dunfermline. I don't know about that Caceres. Is Caceres his name?
Yeah, Caceres.
I absolutely no idea who he is. I don't want to come on here and pretend that I know who he is or how good he is. As kind of Enzo said, pretty much an unknown entity in this league certainly. So anybody who says how good he is or how bad he is, you're talking shit. You know what I mean? So aye, but certainly Robbie Fraser, really good signing for Dunfermline.
Yeah, well, both of these signings, well, they started on the bench anyway. Robbie Fraser being a right back, I believe he was for Livingston last season.
He's primarily a left back, I think, is he not?
He was definitely a fullback. He was definitely a fullback at least, and they probably could have used for starting him, seeing how this game started off. As despite having kickoff, Chiloka Mullen, the Scotland under-21 international, he loses the ball from a press from Dylan Easton, who just bolts it down the line. Ball falls to McMullen, who manages to get it to Stevenson, who just taps it home. And 65 seconds in, which is probably about the same amount of time we spent talking about these signings, it is 1-0 Raith Rovers. I couldn't have asked for a better start, and it very much epitomises how Raith defend that first minute. Just relentless. Like I said this about the Air game a few weeks back, how it's we're ridiculous with how hard we press teams. And yeah, it's just a very good start to the game. More than happy with it.
Yeah, but the defending from Dunfermline for that goal is just that's horrific. And I think Chiloka Mullen's actually quite a decent player. Anytime I've seen him play, I've always been relatively impressed with him. And I know that he's quite heavily involved in the Scotland under-21s these days. I think he's picked up a few caps now. But that was the stuff of nightmares, realistically. I don't know what he was thinking. I know that he's still young and he's still learning how to deal with the pace and physicality of football at this level, but that is... I don't want to say unforgivable because, as I say, he's an inexperienced player, but that is a really, really poor way to start such an important game against your rivals. You can't get away with that at this level.
Pretty much spot on. Enzo is what you said. From a Raith standpoint, Easton done really well with press. Chiloka, Mullen and the build up to the first goal, but Dunfermline have got to be asking questions of that defence for that first goal, especially when it's in the box as well. Can they clear it? You know what I mean? Before you know it, I think who is it that got the layoff to Stevenson in the box? Mullen. Mullen lays it off, and before you know it, 55 seconds in, balls in the back of the net, you're 1-0 down to your rivals. It's not the best of starts to a game of such high importance, you know what I mean? A game you really want to start well in, and you're 1-0 down, 55 seconds in, conceding a goal like that. It's not good at all.
Yeah, it's like Lewis Stevenson was definitely the main talking point of that first half, obviously with that very early goal. There were a few chances for Raith, and then I think Dunfermline's only shot came from Andrew Todd at the halfway line, which went well right. But it was Stevenson who would create the second talking point when he clattered into Andy Todd. Now, Andy Todd, he's one of the spectacled people, like myself, Specky, but he has those goggles. Now, the thing is, I've got those goggles as well, although I've never used them. But, it's they're designed the way to, they stay on your face through, contacts or whatever. Todd's contacts went into orbit with this contact. They went flying. It was you just saw Todd lying there, and then his glasses and his goggles were 6 foot away from him, and it's Now the thing is, it's from the south stand, and people had said from the main stand as well. It just looked like it was a clash of heads, but then it's having seen the replays, it's with his arm, and it's just
that is. I was going to say, based on, I realise your view behind the goal at Starks Park, given it was pretty much in the middle of the park, wouldn't have been great at the time seeing it in person.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
like
It's
as
like in
soon
real
as that
time.
happened,
It's like in real time, a lot of us thought it was just a clash of heads, and we
yeah,
like,
yeah,
of course, the booze came at
yeah,
the booking. I mean, they were going
yeah.
to happen
I mean,
anyway.
at the same
But
time, I'm not
yeah, it's
entirely
like having
convinced.
seen the replay, it's like, how has he not been sent off?
Yeah,
Aye.
at the same time, I'm not entirely convinced that the Dunfermline fans who would have been booing it necessarily saw what was happening either. They would just naturally boo it as a reaction that their player going down, and I think he's out as well with kind of concussion protocol. Andy Todd, so I think he's going to miss maybe 1 or 2 games as a result of that.
Yeah. Lennon came out and said that he did have a concussion, so
Okay,
he'll
cool.
miss the next week's game.
But yeah, he leads with his elbow. And it's funny to me because you listen. I was watching the game on Friday night, and you listen to the commentators. I think it was. It might actually been. I think Chris Doolan was the co-commentator, and I can't remember if it was him that mentioned it or if it was the main commentator. And you always hear this. Oh, he's not that sort of player when somebody goes in and does something like that. But it's like, well, I mean, he's just done it on live TV pretty blatantly. Maybe he is that sort of player. I don't know. He certainly has been tonight anyway. But yeah, there's no justification for that. That's pretty shocking, referee. And it should have been. He led with his elbow. It looked pretty intentional. That is a straight red card.
Yeah,
Right, well, it wasn't though. It wasn't.
Yeah, it was never a red card. I don't know what anyone's on about.
Won the ball.
Aye, exactly, exactly. Won the ball, but yeah, it's like closest anyone would get to another goal in the first half would be Dylan Easton. Well, Josh Mullen did like put in a cross into the box from a free kick that almost dipped in, but Easton had a good chance towards the end that went wide. Second half, just started how it had finished. Really, it was all. It started off with Easton again having a chance. He put it into the back of the net, but he was ruled offside. But watching the replays, and it's like at the time I didn't think it was offside. And watching the replays, I'm not entirely convinced. It looked very, very tight. I'm not sure if BBC Scotland had other angles, like a more side-on angle, but from the Raith TV and from the South Stand, it did not look off. Looked like he was just on. Did he use to get a chance to look, see if it was?
I
Sorry, Enzo, on you go.
No. I was just going to say I can't recall it being a particularly controversial talking point on the night. If I'm honest with you.
Yeah, I'm the same. I mean, I caught the highlights on Raith TV, and pretty much as you said, Callum, like, I don't think you could have tell really if it was. I did watch a game on Friday night, but I, as well as Enzo saying, I don't really remember it being a controversial talking point, so to speak. But obviously you were at the game as well, Callum. So at the game, it probably did look a bit harsh, especially the view you get from that south stand. But like watching it on like BBC and Raith TV, I probably did look off. But I think that's just me trying to re-jog my memory more than anything else.
Yeah, it's just like I only gave it like one quick look back, and I wasn't entirely convinced. But then again, he may have been like a little bit off, and obviously the linesman's going to have a much better view than what those two angles that I had available were. But yeah, and then McMullen would have a chance as well, another a 1-on-1, but he tries to lob it, and it's so annoying with McMullen because it's like he runs his socks off. He's very good at that, and he's good at everything. But his like shooting has been so frustrating. It's like he's got like no power in his shots for whatever reason, and like this was a prime example of it. But yeah, it's like after that, Dunfermline would have a few attempts, but they went either straight at Josh Ray and were quite timid, or went miles over the bar. And there was a point where Mason Munn managed to wipe out one of his defenders. Now the thing is, he did this in the first half as well.
Yeah.
Like in both halves, he came out of the box and just bodied. I think in the first half he might have taken out Benedictus.
Yeah, it was
And in the
Benedictus.
second half, he was the
first
upper
half.
centre back. So we managed to like just wipe out both his centre backs in the game. Now the thing is like. It's like goalkeeper coming out, wiping out a defender. It happens from time to time. That happened twice in one game.
It wasn't the most assured performance from Munn, I don't think, to be honest with you. Like I know I touched on it earlier on when talking about Chaloka Mullen, but Dunfermline do have a young team. I think probably the youngest in the division, I would imagine, if you kind of tally up as an
Yeah, I
average.
believe Dunfermline have the youngest squad in the championship, and I believe Raith have the oldest.
Yeah, that sounds about right. That doesn't surprise me when you look at guys like Stevenson and even guys like Easton. Easton's what, he's in his 30s now, or almost anyway, if he isn't already.
Yeah, I was going to say Easton and Vaughan are not long 30. I think Easton might be 31, 32.
Yeah.
Which I think Ross Matthews, Scott Brown, Hanlon.
Yeah, guys, it does not surprise me that Raith probably have the highest average age in the division. But what the point I was going to make is that you need to have a goalkeeper that the rest of your team can trust in a situation like that where you've got so much youth. And if that's what Munn is going to I just thought in general he didn't look particularly confident, and you can't. That's not going to get you anywhere. And I think the alternative, I think, is Mehmet, isn't it? At this point, is that better? Is it worse? I'm not entirely sure.
That is a lot worse. I can tell you right now, Mehmet is a lot worse.
I don't know. I mean, it might be, it might not be. I don't know. We'll see. I think another thing, just from like a Dunfermline perspective, I'm obviously not a Dunfermline fan, but just like thinking objectively, I feel as though there were times in the second half where I felt as though they were kind of growing into the game a little bit, certainly more than the first half anyway. But if Chris Kane isn't playing, they just have absolutely nothing about them up front. They just have absolutely nothing. I don't think Connor Young is the answer to any question that the Dunfermline fans will be asking right now. He doesn't look as though he's anywhere near championship standard. He just looks like a guy who had went on a good run in League Two, I think it would have been for Edinburgh City, and that got him the move, but it probably maybe came a little bit too soon for him, or maybe he's just not going to cut it at this level at all. I don't know, but they desperately need a bit more firepower up front. I think if they have any ambitions of competing for even the top half of the table, never mind a playoff spot.
Yeah, it was very much. It's like in the preseason, it's very much the reason why I said Dunfermline were going to be down there, and it's because they hadn't addressed the issue that me and Kieran had banged the drum about, and it was the fact that they were terrible up front. It was like outside of Chris Cade, there was nothing there, and it's like there was that point. I think it was around about from like the 55th minute to about the 70th minute. I want to say where it's like Dunfermline did have a bit of the upper hand, but it's just like the whole time I was just like, yeah, they're having these shots, but they're not going to score. They just didn't feel like that was going to happen. But there was definitely a feeling of a second goal coming around about the 70th minute when Lewis Vaughan came on. The record goal scorer in this fixture once again extends his record of scoring in this fixture. It's his 8th goal against the Townies. A first-time volley from a throw-in on the edge of the box. Manages to beat Mason Munn at his near post just about. It's like I've seen Vaughan do that countless times, here a lot better, and it doesn't go in, and that's saying something about that effort. But it's like with that goal, that just killed it. That just killed it.
It did. No, it did.
Vaughan had another chance at the end.
I think the keeper's got to.
Dunfermline had a few.
I think the keeper's got to be doing better for that shot, though, man. Shouldn't be getting beat by a shot like that. No taking any away to Vaughan. I think it's a lovely finish from him, but just the way it comes to him, man, your keeper's got to be doing better than that, and it's just a point. Back to what Enzo mentioned earlier on about the defence kind of may not be trusting Munn as such, and I didn't look convinced by him at all on Friday night. He's probably got a decent bit of potential. He's still relatively young, I'm assuming. He's like early 20s, right? Mason Munn. So, aye. But yeah, when your keeper's kind of not making saves like that when they should be, it's something to be a bit concerned about from a Dunfermline standpoint. But I think as soon as Vaughan comes in, especially in games like this, as you say, Callum, as soon as Vaughan comes on, or he's starting or whatever, you know he's going to score the 5 derbies. You know what I mean? His record in these games speaks for himself, and not surprised he's a record goal scorer for derbies like that. He's a player that just always gets up for games like it, and nonetheless, really good really good finish from him. Even
Yeah,
at 1-0 down, really, Dunfermline did have kind of all the pressure and the ball in the box and all that kind of stuff. Never done much for it. I wasn't really convinced with them at all. The Friday, I thought they were quite toothless up front. Certainly, they're also missing Kane and like Connor Young. I think he's still young. He's still got potential there. But I think definitely this the move. I think it came about too soon for him, and hopefully, if you're a Dunfermline fan, you're hopefully think they kind of he grows into it. He goes into the league and whatever. But I think right now he's just not up for it, up to it. It's a really physical league in the Championship, as we all know, and it looks like he's lacking that at the moment. But I, I think it was the second goal was coming for Raith pretty much all game. You know what I mean? And as soon as they scored, it's game over really. And I think Dunfermline had a couple of shots, a couple of chances after they went 2-0 down, but nah, there's no way back from after
never any. Yeah, it was like a couple of corners, but again, like there was never any threat. And yeah, it's like, Enzo, as you were saying about like the youth of a Dunfermline squad, and Kieran, you were saying about how it's like quite a young defence. It's like Benedictus, I think, was the only player over the age of 23 in that defence, and he's 33 and he cannot run.
And the thing is, though, we see it every single season in the Championship. Obviously, you look at last season, right? Airdrie had the youngest squad in the division, and ultimately they probably should have got relegated, but they were saved by Hamilton basically being the most ridiculous football club in the world. Season before that, we had the youngest squad in the Championship. We went months without winning a game of football. We probably should have got relegated as well, but then obviously Inverness existed that year, and Duncan Ferguson gave us a wee hand ultimately. It's not a recipe for success at this level. You can absolutely promote youth, give them the opportunity to gain a bit of experience, but you need guys who've been there and done it to kind of show them the ropes and get. It's just that mental strength that you need to dig in when things are going difficult. And if you've got 9 guys the age of 21, 22 in the park, it doesn't even matter how talented they are. There's just it's just missing something. And I bet if you go back and look at the teams that have had serious success in this division over the years, they'll all be kind of average age of probably upper 20s at least. And I just don't. I was kind of on the fence about
why Raith were winning the league.
That's not quite what I'm saying, because I think Raith might actually be slightly too old now. No, well, I mean we don't know, but I think Raith could probably use a bit of youth about their squad, if anything. Really, I think you need that mixture. You absolutely need that mixture. Otherwise, it's just I don't know. I don't. Just speaking from the experience I've had watching us with a squad at an average age of about 21 in this league, it's not all about ability. You need that mental strength. You need that experience. You need the guys who have been there and done it before. Guys who know how to get stuck in, know how to kind of use the darker arts of the game as well when you're trying to hold on to a lead. And you just see that a lot of naivety sets in, impatience, and it can be seriously problematic. Now, I don't think Dunfermline will be in trouble at the bottom end of the table. I just don't think they're going to quite achieve what they want. And I think there's also the potential scenario where Neil Lennon loses his nut a wee bit too, and combine that with a very young squad that maybe doesn't know how to handle that. I'm quite unconvinced about their chances.
But, yeah, so with all that said, Raith, they win 2-0. They continue their record of now 13 league games unbeaten, which is the longest in the entirety of the SPFL now. We haven't lost at Starks Park to Dunfermline in 12, so that goes back all the way to 2016. So the only team that's got a worse record, I think, is probably Partick Thistle at this point at Starks Park.
We've no won it. If you want to count the playoff semi-final way, we obviously did beat you in the 90s, the 90 minutes, sorry, but last time we beat you in a league game at Starks Park was 2011. Paddy Boyle scored for us, so that's about a massive throwback there. But it's
crazy.
I hate going to Starks Park. Shite fibber.
I feel as though we've actually got a pretty decent record at Starks over the years. We've picked up some pretty decent wins, and we don't tend to. I mean, I can't remember losing too many games there over the past sort of 3 or 4 years, really. Tend to do okay when we visit Kirkcaldy for the most part.
Yeah, it's like the result put Raith top of the table, and at that point I was screaming "stop the count" because obviously Raith top of the table. You know, you gotta drink it in. You know, it's always nice to have your team top of the table. But yeah, that was not going to last long because St Johnstone exist. The Persia juggernaut. They came off of a extra time defeat, a really late extra time defeat against Motherwell in the League Cup. Well, Arbroath had the week off, but yeah, Saints just utterly dominated this game. Jack Baird would open the scoring after 30 minutes. And with the way that first half went, watching the highlights could have easily been 3 or 4-0 at halftime to St Johnstone. But Jason Holt would get a second on the hour mark, and then after Tumulty was fouled in the box, Stevie Mallon converts 3-0, easy, just so easy. As I was saying, it was a case of just pure domination from them. It's like the stats. There was 19 shots and 5 on target for St Johnstone versus 3 shots and 1 on target for Arbroath, and Saints had 61% possession. And it's like if Cal was here, he would say it's just like they didn't need to get out of first gear or something like that. Just watching it, it was just so easy for them to make chances.
It's exactly what I expected from that game, to be honest with you. And I think it's what I'm going to be predicting and expecting for a huge percentage of St Johnstone games this season. They just play some really nice football. They're playing with a real a real arrogance, actually, but it's justified. I mean, you look at some of the goals they score as well.
Yeah, that second goal.
The second goal on Saturday, yeah. Who I can't recall who it was that scored it.
Jason Holt.
It was Holt's. The second goal because it was Mallon scored the third, didn't he? Holt scored the second.
Yeah, penalty.
Yeah, and it was Baird that scored the first as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was just like the sheer confidence / arrogance to knock the ball about that much in a league game where you're only one up at that point. I know that you're probably feeling that you've got the game in the bag. Arbroath didn't really threaten. They didn't really have much opportunity to threaten. I think over the piece, Arbroath they maybe had one shot in the whole game. Which and as you say, combined with having about 30% possession, really isn't going to get you anywhere playing away at home against the best side in the division. But I think St Johnstone. I've not seen them firsthand yet. I know that you will have done, Kieran.
Unfortunately,
I watched them against Ross County, but that was a terrible game of football. So I'm going to pretend that didn't happen. I've not seen them in person yet. But I think you'd have to be a brave man to bet against them going into pretty much any league game this season.
Pretty much echoing what you'll say, but both of you have said, really. Watching the highlights, the game on Saturday there, it was just all St Johnstone. It was just complete and utter domination station for them, and I think you'll struggle to find teams getting up to McDermott Park with the current run of form they're in, getting up and getting anything up there, and really against St Johnstone in general. Even when St Johnstone played Ross County, County had a couple of chances in that, but pretty much it was all St Johnstone. Ross County did not look good at all, and then obviously we felt the brunt of a St Johnstone whipping first game of the season.
He's made the mistake of scoring first and just
annoying them. It just made them angrier. Even then, before we went 1-0 up, they could have been. Budanowskis kept it for being like two goals down. They could have been 2 goals down before we took the lead. It was brutal, but St Johnstone looked really good. I think they're pretty much. They've got a Premiership squad and the Championship. That's how good they are. They've kept some of the players as well. They've obviously strengthened in that as well, but they've still kept a really good core of the squad that they took down with them, and you can see the gulf in quality between St Johnstone and any other teams in the division at the moment. And as Callum said as well, it could have been easily 3, but at half time it could have been 3-4. It could have, if the score was 5-6, 5-6-0 Arbroath wouldn't have had any real complaints really. And I don't, as I said, I don't think that's a slight on Arbroath. I think just St Johnstone are really good, and I think a lot of teams are going to struggle against them this season. I think they're looking like I know it's early doors. It's mad to say this, but I think they're looking like the title favourites already. I mean, they were not in Ross County, you know what I mean, Friday on a Friday night a couple of weeks ago, and they're putting an early stamp on things at the moment. Putting an early marker down, and they're certainly looking really good.
Yeah, I was going to say it's just like I've got my notes just saying that they look scary, and it's like scarily good. And I was just having a look there. It was 2014-15 season when Hearts won the league with 91 points, scoring 96 goals, and on the way beating Callum 10-0 or something like that. I won't be surprised if something similar like that happens with the St Johnstone team.
Yeah, it's entirely possible that they will utterly destroy one or two teams this year. Definitely. It's going to be, I think what it's going to take is one of the poorer sides in the division being bold enough to try and play football against them and try and kind of press them and stuff, and they'll just get torn apart.
Well, I will say, as a team that is closest to them in the table, we might be the only hope. This. But
we can have that conversation again in 5 months.
Going into this game, I would just see it as a free hit.
Right, that's fair.
At this point.
That's fair.
But meanwhile, for the other team that got relegated from the Premiership, Ross County were at home to Partick Thistle. Kieran, you made the trip to the Highlands for this event, so I'll let you talk through it.
I think heading into the game, heading up on the bus, I was quite confident heading into it. Through whether it was cans on the bus or pints in the Mallow that made me confident, but certainly, after we played in the cup against Ayr, and obviously our win up in Dingwall a month prior to the league game, I think we had every right to be quietly confident. Obviously, Ross County have had their struggles at the moment. That really tough start to this season for them. They've not looked good at all, and so I had reason to believe they could get something out of the game. And then early on, County hit the bar. I think it was a second minute in or something like that. So it started pretty brightly. Other than that, I think we dominated proceedings and pressed them well. It's just pretty much the same as the League Cup game. Pressed them well, and obviously, I thought we looked relatively comfortable. Other than them hitting the bar early on, and then before we went 1-0 up in the 20th minute, we had about 2 or 3 good chances and potentially should have scored them, should have buried them. Crawford and Sosa kind of came close on a few occasions before we took the lead on the 28th minute, and it was an absolutely fantastic goal for Stanley. I don't know if you've seen it, I think it's been posted on Twitter. I think BBC tweeted it as well. BBC Sport. But they tried to get good crosses into the box, and County scrambled to get it clear. Eventually did, but it falls to Ben Stanley, who kind of takes it like 25, 30 yards from goal, kind of drives in for a couple of yards, and then just hits it, just side puts it right into the right hand corner. And a fantastic goal, probably early goal of the season's contender already. It was absolutely fantastic. And even then after that, it was pretty much all us. They went into the lead. It's incredibly comfortable. We probably could have scored more early. And Crawford had another couple of chances now to extend the lead. So I get into the half time break, I don't think we could have any arguments about the scoreline, but we were saying it should have been so much more. Laidlaw definitely, I felt, kept Ross County in the game, kept it from being an absolute battering. I've always rated Ross Laidlaw. I think he's a fantastic keeper. For the games that I've seen, obviously, I think going back to the playoff game we played against Ross County, I think he kept them in that first tie in the first leg. I think he's an absolutely fantastic keeper. And then second half comes and it's pretty much just a repeat of the first half. Chalmers has a chance on his right foot on the right hand side of the box and just puts it just over the bar. And then we managed to then hit County on the counter. Clark made a save before it to tip over the bar from a Henderson ball into the box, but Clark managed to tip over. And then from the corner, as I said, we ended up hitting him for the counter, and O'Reilly headed the ball clear for the corner, and it lands to Fitzpatrick, who does incredibly well to drive into space and feeds Tony Watt into the box, who then just squares it into the box for Chalmer, just tapping goal, pretty much easy as that. And you're thinking, right, that's it. We've kind of not so much killed off. It was only the 48th minute, but 2 goals for the good. You know what I mean? It's more than what we deserve. And I thought we played absolutely excellent. Thought Sosa was absolutely incredible in the first half. I thought again Ross Docherty was a shadow of the player he was. He again, that's 2 games against Thistle and he looked absolutely rattled. I think that's down to our midfield, but especially like Sosa, he had him in his back pocket the whole game. And then County managed to pull one back on the 65th minute. We failed to deal with a sort of throw in and goes into the box, and it's a header goes across, and Rowan and Hales there to kind of slot it away. And from a Thistle standpoint, really poor goal to concede for us, I think. Should be dealing with that a lot better. And then they kind of after they pulled one back, they kind of weathered the storm a wee bit. Yakovic came close to a header right after they equalised, but again straight after that, it was just comfortable again for us. And if anybody looked close to scoring again, it was us. Alex Samuel had a goal chopped offside, which at first at the time, I mean, even in the because where they are in the way end at Dingwall, you're side on. So I thought he was offside, but there's a few people adamant he was on. But I personally think it was offside. And looking back on Jackson, he did look onside, but that would have been good for Alex Salmon to get off and running. But obviously it was unfortunate that the goal got chopped off. And then County did hit the post just after that. I think it was at the 80th minute or something like that. But other than that, County didn't look good, and then they finished the game off with a penalty, and it was a stone water, hit his hand. Stevie Wallace then just sends Laidlaw the wrong way for the spot. And finally, I think we deserved the 3 points. Overall, County just did not look good at all. Again, that's the second time we've seen them, and they're supposed to be the title favourites heading into the season, and they didn't look good at all. They've looked poor any time I've seen them, and again, that's twice we went up to the Highlands and pretty much played them off the park and came away with a 3-1 win. Probably should have scored more, and definitely shouldn't have conceded in both their games, but it's a fantastic performance for Thistle. But now you obviously see you're actually expecting at 5 PM Cowie to get the sack, and obviously eventually does, and we'll go on to talk about that. But I was talking to first man about the game and that, just saying how we're surprised how long he's lasted, to be honest. But County obviously then bite the bullet and get a deal on the Sunday, I think it was.
It was about Sunday lunchtime.
Sunday night, but which I suppose as a County fan, it's a good thing. But other teams in the league, I think they're going appointing a good manager. I think they'll throw money at it.
And never got the chance.
Yeah,
we never got the chance to play Ross County under Don Cowie.
Yeah, but I think there's probably talks of giving it to Tony Dock or something like that. I think that'll be an excellent coup for him. I don't know who you think who'll get the gig, but that's my fear. County is going throwing money at it. throwing money at it and getting a decent manager in. And I think if they do, that'll be their season pretty much underway.
I mean, it would be, but you look at it and you have to sort of question whether maybe, obviously, right, we're 3 games into the season, so there's no use in exaggerating, but 3 games in and they're already 8 points behind St Johnstone. That is insane. Like, that is
Bottom of the league
absolutely
as well, aren't they?
yeah, on well on
Yeah.
goal. They are, aye. I think I just think from a county perspective, there's that frustration of we have some good players. That the squad is good. The squad is more than capable of winning the championship, regardless of how the other teams are faring. I know we talked about St Johnstone, and we're all quite high on St Johnstone. I think they'll do well, but the county squad should be capable of competing with them. And the start of the season they get put out of the League Cup group stages. They didn't qualify from the League Cup, and now they've got 1 point after 3 games in the league. He had to go. There's no argument there whatsoever. I can't imagine there are many county fans who saw that news and went, "Oh no, I think he deserved a wee bit more time," because the time isn't on their side if they want to bounce back at the very first time asking. But it's just I didn't before the season. There were a lot of people saying there's the Don Cowie factor because the chat was Ross County they'll be favourites to win the league, and then there were some people going, "Aye, but Cowie's not a great manager," and the consensus, well, do you know what? They might struggle a wee bit. He might be gone by December or something. I don't think anybody predicted that they'd be gone 3 games into the season or that they would start quite as poorly as what they have done. Because I've watched some of the highlights and I saw that game against St Johnstone that was in the telly, and frankly, they looked absolutely terrible. And I just don't. I can't carry on, especially if they do, as you say, Kieran, put a bit of money into getting a good, experienced manager. They still, I mean, put it this way, I still wouldn't be shocked if they finish second anyway. Maybe not first at this point. I think St Johnstone are going to be really good, but they still absolutely can finish second or potentially first, but I don't see that. They just need to get the right man for the job. Tony Dock would be a great appointment. I wouldn't be surprised to see them give it to somebody like Callum Davidson or something like that. That sort of name just sort of lines up with them. I think kind of boring football, but maybe quite like get them back to being competitive again and grind out results, which maybe is what they need. I just don't think they can be that bad forever. I just don't. I don't see it being possible.
All I'm going to say is Derek Adams is available.
He is. That'd be funny. I mean, he thought the Scottish Premiership was shite, so what's he going to do in the Championship?
You just know it's going to happen, don't we?
Again? Surely not.
Well, how many times? It would be what his fourth spell?
Potentially, yeah.
Fourth spell at Ross County.
The last one was so bad, though, that I just don't know if they'd have the balls to do it again.
No.
Oh, it'd be so funny. I want it to happen. But yeah, it's like with Don Cowie having a look, and it was a case of 2 wins from the last 18, and they haven't won in their last 14 league games.
Right, yeah.
The last win was a 1-0 win at home against Kilmarnock on the 1st of March. Yeah.
Yeah. There aren't many managers in Scotland who would survive a record like that, especially not one of a club who's just been relegated and really wants to bounce back at the earliest possible opportunity. You need to look at that, and I know that obviously Uncle Roy obviously had a kind of fondness for Don Cowie. Probably saw him as his guy, and obviously Cowie's been involved at the club in various ways for a fair while, and I think he wanted to give him that opportunity, but it was pretty untenable, I think, come Sunday morning.
Yeah, it's like if you keep your manager who got you relegated, it's going to be a case of they have to start well.
Yeah,
they have to look like they're going to get yourselves promoted, and
100%. Yeah,
Ross County have not looked like that at all, especially with that League Cup group stage and then throwing away a 2-goal lead against Airdrie, the defeat against St Johnstone, and now this one again, the second pumping off a Partick Thistle. Yeah, it was the right decision, easy.
Definitely.
But yeah, it's like on the other side, Mark Wilson, he has reached 4 points for Partick Thistle, which is the exact points tally that he managed the last time he was in the Championship with Brecon. So, sorry, Kieran, you're not getting any points for the rest of the season.
That's our whack. 4 points. I'll take it.
Yep. There we go. Well done. And Also, it's time for me to have a chat about Jagzone again. Kieran, you put up a tweet. You put up a tweet that is still on your Instagram, by the way. So if anyone from Partick Thistle is watching, message him on Instagram as well. Where you got a message from Partick Thistle telling you to take down that tweet because it had match footage and it would be against Jagzone or whatever.
That is insane, man.
Honestly,
That's
Enzo,
insane.
Jagzone was like throwing me off so much last season because
Oh,
of
it
the
does
fact
my
they had
head
their
in
back
as
highlights
well.
package behind a paywall and it made it a
Yeah.
complete pain in the arse last season at times. And now this.
It does my head in as well. I mean,
It's
luckily,
becoming personal.
we almost always do our own highlights package, but there was one game a couple of years ago, a rare game that I miss, right? Because I'm at the vast majority of Queen's Park games home or away. I missed this game, Thistle away. I couldn't get out of work that day. Rudy Payton scored a free kick, I believe. The guy who does our highlights wasn't there that day, so there was just no way for me to see this goal. Just wasn't possible anywhere. Without paying extra money, and I was not going to give Partick Thistle money to watch fucking highlights.
Salmon's Pizzeria versus Partick Thistle, the greatest battle of Scottish football media. But I suppose we should move on to the first of the two draws, and that being Morton against Ayr. Now, I suppose we should talk about this. The game started with a minute silence for the unfortunate passing of Remy, Emery, Doogie, and Lauren's baby, who was born very premature, like 20 weeks or something like that, who unfortunately passed away in the week before the game. So, of course, we pass on our condolences to the Emery family. I know we've all said our stuff about Doogie as a manager, but again, that's very much related to football. From what I've heard from him as a person, he seems like a lovely guy. So, yeah, it's not something you wish on anyone, like the death of a child. But Doogie still managed this game, which just shows how committed he is. I know there was the chat about him going to Thistle, but for him to continue to come out and manage that game is something you've got to applaud. And again, there was plenty of supportive messages throughout Scottish football and about world football, really. So it's good to see something like that, people come together to help him. So again, condolences to the Emery family. But with the on-pitch action, for the first 20 minutes, judging off the highlights, it was very much Ayr in control for once. with how the season started, it very much seemed that way. But a silly handball or something, because from the Morton highlights we couldn't actually see the handball because it was behind a pillar. God bless Capillo. And handball would give Morton a penalty, which Eamon Brophy would convert. He gives Morton the lead 25 minutes in. After that, both teams would come close to scoring, but it would remain 1-0 at half time. Ayr would get a quick double goal, with both of them being headers. Kevin Holt in the 55th minute, just cross from the edge of the box, just headed in. Whereas McAllister would head in from a corner, like 4 minutes later. Again, both sides would have chances, but Eamon Brophy would strike again to get his second and Morton's equaliser with a looping header. And that was really it. Like there wasn't really like big misses or whatever in that game. But Ayr still just don't look like the side we thought they were going to be.
I mean, is that potentially because Scott Brown isn't a very good manager? And there's maybe not any evidence to suggest otherwise yet at this stage in his career, really?
Yeah, because it's like
They've got a squad that's good enough to be beating teams like Morton, and they've got a squad that's capable of finishing potentially even second or third in the division. I know that they've had a few injuries here and there, which certainly won't be helping, but I could see, and I don't think they have quite yet. I know that there have been some frustrations that have been voiced, hence Ayr putting out a statement basically telling their fans to to
Oh
keep
yeah, that was
quiet.
so funny.
I mean, listen, there's, as if you know, going after your own fans just doesn't ever
that
backfire.
never
It's
goes. That
always
never works out well.
always a clever thing to do. Yeah, definitely. But I do think that if things don't pick up in the next week or two, I think he's going to really start being put under a lot of pressure by Ayr fans, and I think you'll start hearing shouts for him to go altogether.
Yeah, because it's like the first 2/3 of last season, Ayr were excellent. They were title
Yeah.
challenges, and then they dropped off. And then it's like in the playoffs, they weren't that impressive against Partick.
Yeah.
I've seen them at both Starks and Somerset in the last 6 months, and I've not been impressed with them in those games. And yeah, it's not looking good for Scott Brown's Ayr United. We might have to retire the Scott Brown's Ayr United name soon with the way things are going. On the other hand, though, Morton continued their very Morton start to the season. 3 games, 3 draws, and it's gone 0-0, 1-1, 2-2. So
Who do they play next week?
I'm not sure who they've got. Let's see. I've got them up next week. They have St Johnstone away. So if that game finishes 3-3,
I certainly think they're likely to concede 3 goals. Whether they'll score 3 in return, I'm not quite so sure about. But we'll see. Yeah, I think look, Ayr just look a little bit disjointed. I think, and part of the trouble with Scott Brown, I felt last season as well, that was that he's a little bit of he's a little bit of a tinkerer. He likes to make changes here and there with the starting 11. He doesn't seem to know what his best 11 is at any point. And obviously there was the running
he
joke.
doesn't
About
know
his,
who his best goalkeeper is.
well, yeah, that's what I was going to say. Yeah, and I just get the impression that he's one of these managers who's so used to having played at such a high level, surrounded by such quality players, that he has the expectation that his players, who are nowhere near the standard of the guys that he played beside, are going to be able to play to that level and to the sort of intricacies of how he's expecting. And I think he just needs to dial it back a wee bit, simplify his starting 11, simplify how he wants them to play. And I think he'll see results, but I also feel like he might be too stubborn to do that.
I never thought I'd make this comparison between two people, but Scott Brown might be like Thierry Henry, because there was...
I thought you were going to say Barry Ferguson, because he was kind of similar as a manager as well.
No, but it's like Thierry Henry. I think it might. I'm not sure if it was when he was a manager or if he was still playing when he was over in America, where he was annoyed at players not being able to do things that he was able to do as a player. But it's like, Thierry, you were like one of the best players in the world.
Yeah.
Scott Brown was one of the best players in Scotland for ages, and obviously playing for Celtic, you're going to have the best players in Scotland around you. So I'm not sure if that's like you say, it's a case of thinking it's all on the players and maybe not so much on the tactics. So again, will be interesting to see if Scott Brown tinkers even more and finds something that works again, or if he just gets sacked in like a month.
I don't know what it would take. It'll be interesting to see, because I would imagine he's probably on pretty well paid at Ayr, I would imagine. I suspect that he's also been. I mean, the players that they've brought in have been his players that he's wanted, I think. So I think they will give him a fair crack at it. And I think he probably will turn it around slightly at some point, but probably not to the standard that I think Ayr fans would have liked to have seen this season going into the season, where they were quite heavily full of optimism, and understandably so.
Mm-hmm. Kieran, any thoughts on Ayr or Morton?
No, pretty much echo what both of you said, really. I think it's your typical start for Morton, really. 3 games, 3 draws. But I thought Ayr looked probably the brighter team at the two, but I mean, Morton certainly I thought had their chances as well in the game to kill it off. Well, to kill it off and to win it, but so did Ayr too. I felt, but if you're Ayr United now, you're kind of starting to wonder where your wins coming from, and but for a team that had so much kind of promise heading into this season, and quite rightly so, with how well we started last season, the squad that they've got certainly, and the recruitment that they've got, that they made as well. But you'd be thinking that they'd be starting starting the season, sorry, a lot more brighter than certainly what they have, and I think Brown will be under serious pressure if things start, continue to not click and continue the way they are really, and they don't start picking up wins. When we played them in a cup last week in the cup,
Yeah,
I,
about ass
I thought they were,
as well.
I thought they were pretty poor. Certainly you've seen them down at Somerset as well, Callum, and I think you said on the last pod that it didn't look impressive at all, and that was at Somerset too, which is
Which is highly
notoriously,
unusual. It's like Somerset's a
yeah,
fortress usually, but
yeah,
this did not work out.
aye, it's notoriously a hard place to go to, and for an play like that, but the way they did at Somerset, alarm bells are still to start. They've got to start running, but you can see it going one of both ways. You can see him turn it around, but turning it around, I mean, he's got the squad there to do it. Certainly, they've got a good, you know, core squad there. They've got, Cutter's main as well. Who certainly, I think he's a really good player for this level. But certainly this season so far, I've not been impressed with them, and obviously I've only seen them in the cup. I've not played them in the league yet. I've only really seen them in the cup. And obviously, we came out winning that game 2-0, and 2-0 was relatively comfortable for us. But certainly, our focus now should be in the league and starting to climb back up the table and making them a brighter start to the league, because it's not really looking good for them at the moment. If it continues the way it does, and they don't start picking up wins here, then they could struggle. They could struggle, and Brown will certainly find himself under pressure.
I suppose it leaves us with the final game now, and that was Airdrie at home against Queen's Park. Now, after a few days after Airdrie's game against Dunfermline, it might have been like the day after, I think it was after we recorded the podcast, Airdrie announced that Rhys McCabe had resigned. And there was no murmurings of McCabe leaving before this, so it does make you wonder what's happened for him to decide that's it. Because I mean, like we did say, it's like Airdrie haven't been the best over. It's like last season they should have been relegated, but managed to survive the playoffs. And this season, it's like they fought back to get a draw against Roskilde, but it's like they lost to Dunfermline. We said about how it's a concerning run of form, but Rhys McCabe, the first championship casualty when it comes to managers. Enzo, you were at this game. You want to talk us through it?
Yeah, I'll do my best. I actually, to be honest with you, there's been. I thought it was a relatively entertaining game, given that it was two teams that were pretty rubbish in general. It was quite a physical game. Both teams were really, really getting stuck in for the full 90. And I'm quite surprised that there wasn't a red card either way at any point. The referee was a wee bit, I think he lost control of the game a wee bit, and I'm not complaining about it necessarily. I think he just didn't know what he was doing, not necessarily in anybody's favour. But unfortunately, that's just something that we experience all the time at this level, or in Scottish football in general. I think we probably started the game a little bit brighter than Airdrie, but I felt as though there just wasn't really any final product, and that's something that you could probably say for both teams for the duration of this game. There wasn't really any final product, and then Airdrie were breaking really fast when we failed to actually do anything with the ball in their kind of in and around their area. But then again, they also don't have any final product, so they did nothing with it. There was a decent chance quite early on into the game. I think it was maybe Roddy McGregor, so Conley. A nice wee 1-2 between Aidan Conley and Seb Draws. That Charlie Fox kind of got a head on it and didn't convert it, and then Conley himself had a decent wee chance. Roddy McGregor had a great chance as well. I think the keeper made a really good save for that. I can't recall seeing it back on the highlights. But it was just one of these games where two teams, as I say, getting really stuck in, but lacking any real quality. And then just after half time, I think it was maybe 7 minutes into the second half, Seb draws, who I thought was really poor, unfortunately. But he played because Michael Ruth picked up a knock. Ruth's been fantastic for us so far. Picked up a knock in training during the week, and he missed this game, which was a real shame. Uh, Draws gives away a wee bit of a daft penalty on the edge of the box, and obviously Ewan Henderson, former Queen's Park player, swings it in. It's a fantastic free kick, to be fair. A really, really good goal. And at that point, I'm going, I don't see us coming back into this. But then actually, Sean Crichton sort of changes things up a wee bit. And this is something that I'm slightly frustrated with because last week against Arbroath, we didn't really play with wide attacking players until he made changes when we were already 3-0 down, and then we scored a goal, but by that point it was too late. And then in this game as well, he made the same changes when we were 1-0 down, and we just came so much more alive. So that's a little bit disappointing to not go at that from the beginning. That was what I was expecting to see, and I didn't, unfortunately. But when it came to, I think it was about 10 minutes to go in the second half, and Aidan Conley picks up the ball. He was really good on the day, by the way. Drives forward, knocks it out wide to Tyrese McDonald, young player. I think Tyrese is maybe only 18 years old. He may be 19 now, actually. And he cuts inside and curls it into the far corner. It was a fantastic finish again. Two really good goals in this game, to be fair, for two teams that were lacking a lot of quality going forward, I would say. Two fantastic goals. But then as soon as, and this is such a classic Queen's Park trait, as soon as we scored that goal, you're thinking, right, we're on the up here. We've got the momentum. As soon as we score that goal, we're on the back foot again. I don't know what it is. I think it's maybe a mentality thing, but we have this issue where we just panic big time. But there really isn't a whole lot to comment on in terms of individual events or big chances, misses, saves, anything like that. As I say, I think over the course of the game, I think we maybe had a little bit. I'm not even sure it's fair to say that. I was going to say maybe we had slightly better chances, but I don't know if that's necessarily the case. And over the piece, I think a draw was probably the fair result. I think we could have won that if we'd maybe changed our shape a little bit earlier on, or even started with the slightly more attacking shape, but we didn't, and ultimately we only came with a draw, only came away with a draw, which isn't the end of the world. Because we've now 3 games into the season, we've drawn both of our away games, and if we'd got something from their Broth game at Lesser Hampden, I'd be saying okay, fair enough. But we didn't. So here we are, 3 games into the season with 2 points. One really, really frustrating thing that I just want to talk about briefly actually is, so we've now we've conceded 5 goals 3 games into the season, right? 3 of them have been direct free kicks. One of them has been a penalty against Raith, which should never have been a penalty. I'm not hearing anything you're going to say about that, Callum. So 3 direct free kicks and 1 penalty that shouldn't have been a penalty. That is just ridiculous. In like 5 goals, that three direct free kicks in 2 games. How often do you see that? Honestly, it's just I feel like we could probably have defended those free kicks a wee bit better, or the goalie should have maybe done a wee bit better for them. But I feel as though it's been a long
Will not
time
plug a
since I've.
hand out to concede a penalty.
Well, I mean, it didn't hit his hand, but anyway, I feel as though it's been a long time since I've come away from a game going, oh, do you know what? We got a wee bit of luck there. We probably didn't deserve that, but we got a result. It's just not coming. It's just nothing is really going in our favour. There's just no. Queen's Park are not getting any luck now. And to be fair, right, we're also not a very good team, but not very good teams still get a bit of luck occasionally and get results that they don't necessarily deserve. But here we are. We're now 13 league games going stretching back to last season that we've not won. I'm not panicking yet because I've seen some signs that if Crichton can figure out what his best shape is, we might do okay. I think we've got a right back coming in on loan, which is really good because that'll allow Carlo Pignatello to move to the middle of the park, which is an area that I think we're sort of struggling to control a wee bit. But we'll see. I'm not too worried yet. I think think Airdrie looked pretty poor on Saturday as well. They are going to really struggle to score goals, I think, this season. That they just don't really have anything about them up front. And obviously the big decision on their end is who they're going to get to replace McCabe. The latest rumours, I don't know if you have seen this. This might be announced or it might be confirmed as nonsense by the time that people are listening to this. But the chat right now is that they're potentially replacing McCabe with Danny Lennon, which I think would be a bit of a terrible appointment. But we'll see if that actually happens. That's just the chat about Twitter and Pine Bother and whatever else at the minute. I don't know if it's, as I say, by the time people listen to this, that'll either have been confirmed as he is the new manager or it was absolute nonsense. So we'll see. But I wouldn't be totally shocked if we were looking at two sides that will be propping up the table come the end of the season, based on what I saw on Saturday there.
I think the Airdrie job would be a great job for Ian Murray. But
I mean, the interesting thing though with the Airdrie job is the sort of the talk was that McCabe was frustrated with the Airdrie board with the lack of funding, the lack of signings that he's been able to make this summer, especially when it came to up front, because they really don't have a proper recognised striker in their squad at all. And given that they sold Ben Wilson for a decent amount, I think McCabe was expecting that he'd be able to reinvest some of that at least, and he's not been able to. So I think that if that is the case, obviously that's just based on what people are saying. We don't know for a fact because none of us are involved at Airdrie. But if that is the case, then it's not going to make it a particularly.
Danny Lennon rumours because they can't afford anyone else.
They can't afford it, or no, maybe they can afford to put a wee bit more money into the management job. But whoever is potentially keen on it will want to know how much backing they're going to get in the next 4 days, or potentially even get into the remainder of the loan market, and then again in January. And if the answer to that is absolutely nothing, then that's when you might need to lower the bar a wee bit for your appointment.
Yeah, it does seem like there is trouble there. Again, it's like I watched the highlights just in case you weren't able to make it on, and see watching this game, I am of the opinion that these two teams are going to be at the bottom. They're going to be the bottom two teams, and I don't know which one's going to be bottom. It does not look good for either side. Like you say, it's like Queen's Park don't seem to have the luck. Airdrie just don't seem to have the ability.
I mean, we don't have that much ability either. Don't get me wrong. I'm not by any stretch. I'm not claiming that we.
I was trying to give like some sort of hope.
I know, but I don't want to come. I don't want to come across as biased or anything like that. I mean, obviously I am, but I think that we have a group of players. Again, it's a pretty young group of players. We don't have a significant amount of experience, and unfortunately, the experienced guys that you'd expect to be able to rely on have actually been really poor so far this season. They've cost us goals. I think there's a group of players there that if Craig can figure out what the best shape is, and if we can maybe bring one or two loanies in, and we can just stop passing the ball so much when we get into the final third, just like be a little bit more aggressive with it, take a few more shots, because we've proven that we've actually scored some decent goals when we've had the courage to actually try. I think there's a team that can stay up. But I certainly don't think there's any chance of any more than that.
I thought you were going to say just like stop conceding free kicks.
Well, that too, that would make a difference. I mean, if we just stop giving away free kicks in the edge of the box, then we would have at least 4 more points so far this season.
So yeah, might as well look at the table. Quick look at the table now, which St Johnstone remain top with a perfect record. It's only them, Alloa and Celtic who have perfect records at this stage of the season, so fair play to them. Then, of course, it's Raith Rovers in second on 7 points, and despite losing 2-0, Dunfermline actually moved up to third because of St Johnstone's big win against Arbroath. Partick Thistle up to fifth now, also on 4 points. But it's a case of Dunfermline having 0 goal difference, Arbroath -1, Partick Thistle -2. Greenock Morton being Greenock Morton, they are 6th, 3 draws from 3 games. Then it is Ayr, Airdrie, and Queen's Park, all on 2 points. Airdrie and Queen's Park actually have the exact same record so far: 2 draws, a loss, 3 goals scored, 5 conceded.
So are they above us in alphabetical order?
Maybe. I don't know how it works at this point. And bottom of the table, it is Golden Cowie's Ross County. The fixtures for next week, meanwhile, we have Partick Thistle at home. We have no Friday night action this time. I think this is the first week of it, actually. It's taken 4 match days for no Friday night football. But Partick Thistle against Raith Rovers, that's the big one, especially considering it's going to be me and Kieran and Muns beforehand. Not afterwards, especially if something goes wrong for either of us. Arbroath, they're at home to Airdrie. Enzo, your lot Queen's Park faces a trip down to Ayr. Dunfermline, they're at home to managerless Ross County. Well, I mean, they announced John Robertson as interim manager. And St Johnstone, meanwhile, are at home to Greenock Morton. So it'll be Aidan's turn to be pumped in Perthshire. We will be covering those next week. And so, it's been good chatting with you boys. And again, goodbye next week.
Cheers.
Thanks for having us on.